Number 1. We reach the same end by our discrepant means. The most common way of softening the hearts of those we have offended once they have us at their mercy with vengeance at hand is to move them to communication and pity by our submissiveness. Yet, flat contrary means, bravery and steadfastness, have sometimes served to produce the same effect. Edward, Prince of Wales, the one who long governed Arguinan and whose qualities and fortune showed many noteworthy characteristics of greatness, have been offended by the inhabitants of Limoges, took their town by force. The lamentations of the townsfolk, the women and the children left behind to be butchered, crying for mercy and throwing themselves at his feet, did not stop him until eventually, passing ever deeper into the town, he noticed 3 French noblemen, who alone, with unbelievable bravery, were resisting the thrust of his victorious army. Deference and respect for such remarkable valor first blunted the edge of his anger. Then, starting with those 3, he showed mercy on all the other inhabitants of the town. Scanderbeg, Prince of Epirus, was pursuing one of his soldiers in order to kill him. The soldier, having essayed all kinds of submissiveness and supplications to try and appease him, as a last resort, resolved to await him, sword in hand. Such resolution stopped his master's fury short. Having seen him take so honorable a decision, he granted him his pardon. The Emperor Conrad III had besieged Gough, Duke of Bavaria. No matter how base and cowardly were the satisfactions offered him, the most generous condition he would vouchsafe was to allow the noble woman who had been besieged with the Duke to come out honorably on foot, together with whatever they could carry on their persons. They, with greatness of heart, decided to carry on their shoulders their husbands. At seeing the nobility of their minds, that he wept for joy and quenched all the bitterness of that mortal deadly hatred he had harbored against the Duke. From then on he treated him and his family kindly. Both of these means would have swayed me easily, for I have a marvelous weakness towards mercy and clemency, so much so that I would be more naturally moved by compassion than by respect. Yet for the Stoics, pity is a vicious emotion. They want us to succor the afflicted, but not to give way and commiserate with them. Now, these examples seem to me to be even more to the point in that souls which have been assaulted and assayed by both those methods can be seen to resist one without flinching, only to bow to the other. It could be said that for one's mind to yield to pity is an effect of affability, gentleness, and softness, whereas disdaining tears and supplications, and then yielding only out of respect for the holy image of valor, is the action of a strong, unbending soul, reserving its goodwill and honor for stubborn masculine vigor. Yet ecstatic admiration and amazement can produce a similar effect in the less magnanimous. Witness the citizens of Thebes. They have impeached their captains on capital charges for having extended their mandates beyond the period they had prescribed and preordained for them. They were scarcely able to pardon Pelopidas, who, bending beneath the weight of such accusations, used only petitions and supplications in his defense, whereas, on the contrary, when Epaminondas came and gloriously related the deeds he had done and reproached the people with them profoundly and arrogantly, they had no heart for even taking the ballots into their hands. The meeting broke up, greatly praising the high-mindedness of that great figure. The elder Dionysius had captured, after long delays and extreme difficulties, the town of Rhegium, together with its commander Phaeton, an outstanding man who had stubbornly defended it. he resolved to make him into a terrible example of vengeance. Dionysius first told him how he had the previous day drowned his son and all his relations. Phaeton merely replied that they were happier than he was by one day. Next he had him stripped, seized by executioners, and dragged to the town, while he was flogged cruelly and ignominiously, and plied with harsh and shameful insults. But Phaeton's heart remained steadfast, and he did not give way. On the contrary, with his face set firm, he loudly recalled the honorable and glorious cause of his being condemned to death, his refusal to surrender his country into the hands of a tyrant. And he threatened Dionysus with swift punishment from the gods. Dionysus read in the eyes of the mass of his soldiers that instead of being provoked by the taunts which this vanquished enemy made at the expense of their leader and of his triumph, they were thunderstruck by so rare a valor beginning to soften, wondering whether to mutiny, and ready to snatch Phaeton from the hands of his guards. So he brought Phaeton's martyrdom to an end, and secretly sent him to be drowned by the sea. Man is indeed an object miraculously vain. Various and wavering, it is difficult to found a judgment on him which is steady and uniform. Here you have Pompey pardoning the entire city of Mamertines, against whom he was deeply incensed, out of consideration for the valor and great-heartedness of Zeno, a citizen who assumed full responsibility for the public wrongdoing, and who begged no other favor than alone to beat the punishment for it. Yet that host of Scylla showed similar bravery in the city of Perga, and gained nothing thereby, neither for himself nor for the others. And directly against my first examples, Alexander, the staunchest of men, and the most generous toward the vanquished, stormed after great hardship the town of Gaza, and came across Betis, who commanded it. Of his valor during the siege he had witnessed staggering proofs. Now Betis was alone, deserted by his own men, his weapons shattered, all covered with blood and wounds. He was still fighting in the midst of several Macedonians, who were slashing at him on every side. Alexander was irritated by so dearly won a victory. He said to him, "You shall not die as you want to, Betis. Take note that you will have to suffer every kind of torture which can be thought up against a prisoner." To these menaces, Betis replied not a word. Then Alexander, seeing his haughty and stubborn silence, said, "Has he bent his knee? Has he let a word of entreaty slip out? Truly, I will overcome that refusal of yours to utter a sound. If I cannot wrench a word from you, I will at least wrench a groan." And as his anger turned to fury, he ordered his heels to be pierced, and dragging him alive behind a cart, had him lacerated and dismembered. Was it because bravery was so unusual for him that he was never struck with wonder by it, and therefore respected it less? Or was it because he thought bravery to be so properly his own that he could not bear to see it at such a great height in anyone else without anger arising from an emotion of envy? Or did the natural violence of his anger allow of no opposition? Truly, if his anger could ever have suffered a bridle, it is to be believed that it would have done so during the storming and sack of Thebes. At seeing so many valiant men put to the sword, men lost and with no further means of collective defense, for a good 6,000 of them were killed, none of whom was seen to run away or to beg for mercy. On the contrary, all were seeking, here and there about the streets, to confront the victorious enemy, and to provoke them into giving them an honorable death. None was so overcome with wounds that he did not essay with his latest breath to wreak revenge, and to find consolation for his own death in the death of an enemy. Yet their afflicted valor evoked no pity. A day was not long enough to slake the vengeance of Alexander. This carnage lasted until the very last drop of blood remained to be spilt. It spared only those who were disarmed. The old men, women, and children from whom were drawn 30,000 slaves.